let the competitive nature of applying for one of those spots scare you from applying. And I think that psychs a lot of people out. They think I can't compete with this competition, and they don't even try.
Yeah, that's good advice.
And you said a couple things that were very interesting. The first thing that I just wanted to focus on a little bit was don't let it discourage you. And it reminds me, years ago in my previous life, in the previous job profession that I had, we had an individual that was trying to become a supervisor and move up in the company. It's obviously a big pay jump, and it was more of a management role. And it was very competitive. We had 7 people vying for that spot. And, after extensive interviews with all the managers of the building, and, everybody had like a review and a selection board, basically, at this retail job, at the big box retailer. And we ended up going with 2 people. And this individual, who was one of my, what I used to call gold stars. I always had, as a manager, I always had 4 or 5 employees that were my gold stars, that I knew that, if I needed to get something done, I knew that they're the ones that I'm going to try to give the work to, because their aspirations were to move up in the company, and I knew it would get done. And he was one of my gold stars. And he came to me afterwards and was extremely upset. He goes, this is bull crap. And he was mad. He was mad because he said, I'm more qualified, I've got more experience. And he also was an active reservist. And he goes, I have more experience. I deal with generals and stuff. And I can't believe the way I've been passed up by these people who are not even, as experienced or as old as I am. And I said, well, if all it took was for you to hear one thank you, but no thank you, to discourage you to the point where you no longer have faith in your job, your position, or this company, or the people that run it, then it tells me that the management and their decision was a good decision, because
absolutely,
this is all it took for you to get discouraged. Well, then this is not really the job for you then. And it was a little, come to Jesus moment for him, pardon the expression. Yeah. And he did turn it around, and he did become a member of management and moved on with the company. And, I wished him the very best to do that. And we did everything we could, but that's what he had to hear. And the fact that here we are more than 20 years later, and you're saying the exact same thing, that you can't let little things discourage you, whether that's with military service, whether that's in the commercial realm of trying to get a job at an airline or trying to move up or whatnot. And I know this is at least at an airline level in aviation, it is a seniority-based promotional place. But just staying in your rank and file and being a pilot and moving up and becoming a captain and earning your 4 stripes, that's not the only position you can get out there. There's plenty of management job positions and plenty of positions in leadership where it doesn't matter what your serial number is or your seniority. All that matters is that, do you have the right attitude? Which lends to the second part of what you mentioned, that I really have been saying this from the beginning of the podcast. It's all about the attitude. Who gets hired? It's not the person that has the most experience, the most type ratings, the most flight time. It's the person with the right attitude. So, like you said, am I going to want to shoot you more than I shoot the enemy? Or am I going to be okay flying a 4-day trip with you? Or are you just going to make me and the entire crew miserable? So having the right attitude, having the right perspective in this aviation career is actually the key to everything, to getting hired, to getting those promotions, to networking yourself, to having the opportunity to move on and move forward in aviation. So thank you for kind of reminding us all about that. And it just goes to show of the excellent attitude that you've had in the beginning of your career that got you into the position where you are. Now, you were telling us that you worked on your flight instruction. You made it to CFI flight instructor position. Did you have a lot of students when you were?
I got the CFI, but I really used it very little. I think I used it like 20 hours or something like that, maybe not even.
So you got hired on real quick. It was a pre-FAR 117 requirements of the 1,500 hours. You were able to land a job at a regional airline. How did that process work?
So what was going on? I mean, 2007, the regional airlines needed pilots, and it was before, it was before the 1,500-hour rule came into effect. It was well before that. So there were bridge programs out there where basically they would take you from pretty much having your multi and your commercial to what you go through. And I went through it down in Vero Beach at Flight Safety. Is they basically take you through what is a full-on type rating, except you don't actually get typed, but it's pretty much the same exact training. And actually, at the time, I was pre-hired by Sandpiper, with the, okay, go through this and pass, and you have a job at Sandpiper. And that's basically how it worked. But, now the 1,500-hour rule precludes those types of programs from being out there. So I did get hired on with pretty low time. Like I said, I forget the exact number. I mean, it was under 500 hours, and,
so you were in a part of the bridge program. Tell me a little bit about this bridge program. What is a bridge program for those listeners out there that may not have heard that term?
Well, first and foremost, the bridge programs don't really exist anymore because you now have the 1,500-hour rule, and there's a couple of other stipulations in there too. I mean, you have to have 1,500 hours. You have to have a degree from an accredited aviation program. They might be able to water some of that 1,500 down to a lower amount of hours, but this was before any of those rules existed. So, kind of what I'm talking about, this was sort of what existed in the day, and that's a long time ago now. But anyway, it's as I kind of just described it. It's one of these things where you have your multi and your commercial, which qualifies you for it. And then you could go from basically that to going through one of these programs. And again, I did mine down at Flight Safety in Vero Beach, being pre-hired by Sandpiper on the contingency that, hey, you go through this program, you pay for it out of pocket, you have to pass this program. And when you do, we will give you a class date at Sandpiper. So that's what I went through. And the program that they put you through is basically what equates to going through a full-on type rating, except you're not officially going to get a type rating out of it. It's the same training, but you don't get the type at the end of it. And it's pretty much the same, long-term training footprint that you're going to go through when you get hired at Sandpiper or whatever respective regional at the time. So that's kind of how that works.
Neat. Or
how it did work, past tense.
Hey, so was that bridge program associated with Bridgewater State's program?
No, it wasn't. No, I mean, bridge program and Bridgewater State. I mean, I could see where one would make the correlation, but
because I attended the Delta Connection Academy for a short period of time, and I think I remember Bridgewater as being one of the schools that had the bridge program for that. But like you said and alluded to, everything morphed into something different, and
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So you went through Flight Safety's program, and ended up in 2007. Landing a job at Sandpiper. Do you remember that interview process back then? How difficult was that?
I'll tell you what, you going into the interview, you're very nervous about it. And I still remember the lady who interviewed me. I mean, basically, I think everybody at Sandpiper remembers Claudette, and just what a nice lady. I mean, you get in there and, it's like you're in the big game, you're right at kickoff, you're nervous, you don't want to make a mistake. And I remember walking into the office being like, oh, okay, what am I in for here? This is going to be, it's just going to be a really intense, grueling interview. Just made some small talk. And then 10 minutes later, after sort of transitioning from the small talk, I realized, oh, the interview already started and I didn't know it. And the lady was just great to talk to. She's just a very pleasant person. They ask you kind of the standard interview-ish type questions, which you prepare for those. And I'll tell you, it was a very pleasant experience. Claudette was a great lady to work with. And on the subject of interviews, and I know that Claudette was doing this up until recently, or I think she might still be doing it as a matter of fact, but she does interview prep along with Judy Tarver, another one who does it. And I actually did Judy Tarver's interview prep some number of years later when I was trying to get on at some guard units and then again at some different airlines down the road. And that's one of the things that, going into an interview, I would highly recommend is do an interview prep. And there's I'm trying to think, there's FAPA, there's a couple other ones, I think Emerald Coast, Cage Consulting. I assume most of them are still around, but granted, interviews right now with what's going on, there's not too many of them to be had, but this too will pass and it's going to spin back up again. And I definitely would recommend that anyone who's going to interview coming up, hire one of these people. It's a great investment. Like I said, I worked with Judy Tarver. She was excellent. I highly recommend her. And oddly enough, the lady who did my interview at Sandpiper was also, an interview sort of consultant for people down the road, Claudette Carroll. Yeah, they're all very good. I definitely recommend looking them up and checking them out.